It's the Mixed Martial Arts Hour with
the Mixed Martial Arts Hour back in your life on this Monday, November 24th, 2014. Hello again, everyone. I'm Ariel Helwani inside our New York City studio. Beautiful New York. I just got back from Montreal. I was there for a wedding. It is freezing there. I love Montreal. Remember last time I was there, I was saying that I was considering moving back. Still love it. It still feels like home, but it is so much colder than New York. And that is amazing to me because they're not really that far from each other. It was good to be home. Good to be back. Another busy weekend in mixed martial arts. Another busy weekend in the world of combat sports, from Metamoris to the UFC, a great UFC show that delivered. Manny Pacquiao, always something to talk about in the world of combat sports, and that's why we love it so much. We talk MMA in particular on this show, and we have a lot to discuss, as always. I'm really excited about this show. I'm super excited. I can tell everyone's got a pep in their step because we got a big show, a fun show for everyone. Can't wait to get into it. All right, who's joining us on this particular episode? 2:45, my friends. I'm really excited about this. In studio, we're going to be joined by one of the biggest, most popular comedians in the entire world. This man, according to Forbes, last year was the third highest paid comedian in the world. Russell Peters, from Toronto, from Brampton, Ontario, Canadian, Canada's own. Joining us in studio, a lot of people may not know this, but he is a huge UFC fan, a former amateur boxer, loves combat sports, hilarious guy. Interesting about this guy, he's on a tour right now. It's called Almost Famous, the Almost Famous Tour. Third highest paid, incredibly popular, sold out the Air Canada Centre in Toronto 5 times, the O2 Arena in London 5 times, sold out the Barclays Centre, been to MSG, going to MSG on December 11th, yet a lot of people don't know who he is. Never been on Letterman, never been on Stern, but in around an hour and 45 minutes, he's going to be on the MMA Hour, my friends, and that is bigger than all of them. Can't wait for that. Russell Peters joining us in studio at 2:45. 2:25, we're going to talk to Gary Cook, who is the new UFC Chief Global Officer. What does that mean? We'll find out at 2:25. 2:05, we're going to talk to Ben Rothwell. Of course, in September, he defeated Alistair Overeem. Looking forward to his next fight back. He is climbing the heavyweight rankings. Big Ben joins us at 2:05. 1:45, we're going to be joined by Will Brooks, who, of course, is the new Bellator lightweight champion, the official Bellator lightweight champion. He was the interim champion. They kind of took that away from him, but then he beat Michael Chandler last weekend, and I'm looking forward to talking to him and discuss where he goes from here. At 1:25, we're going to be joined by Tyron Woodley. A lot going on in his life. Of course, last week it was announced that he'll be facing Kelvin Gastelum at UFC 183, January 31st. It is the co-main event of the Anderson Silva-Nick Diaz card, and there's so much going on for Tyron outside of the cage. Looking forward to having him back on. I know that's a personal favorite as far as interviews go for Mr. New York Rick. And as always, after the interviews, we're going to be taking your questions and comments. Hit us up using the hashtag #TheMMAHour. Leave a question or comment in the comment section below. Yes, I know that Sting made his debut in WWE, and no, we're not going to talk about it because we don't really care. Come on. Did you see his hair? It was thinning. It's like 15 years too late. And we're also going to go Inside the Vault. Somewhat related to Sting, by the way, this week's Inside the Vault. So looking forward to that. That'll be at around 3:45, 4 o'clock. But first, let us go to our first guest of the day. He joins us via the phone on Saturday night in Austin, Texas. A lot of big performances. Of course, Frankie Edgar pulling off the latest win in UFC history. Just seconds remaining in the 5th round. He submits Cub Swanson via neck crank. A huge result for Frankie Edgar, a very important result in the 145-pound division. I am sure we'll talk about that later in the show. There were a lot of great performances in Austin, and in my opinion, one of the biggest ones and one of the best stories coming out of that show was the return of Matt Wiman, who hasn't fought in almost 2 years. He defeated Isaac Vallie-Flagg via decision, a very impressive performance, and I'm so happy that he's finally joining us on the MMA Hour again because I've been almost begging him to come on the show for what feels like months, maybe even years now. And now we go to our first guest of the day. His name is Matt Wiman, and he joins us via the phone. Matt, are you there?
Hey, Ariel. Yes, I am. Thank you
Wow.
for having me. I'm excited, too. I think I just had to start talking, and then I'm actually excited now to be on. So
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it, and congratulations on the win. A lot to discuss with you, but you haven't been in action. Like I said, it's almost 2 years. January will be 2 years. What did it feel like, early on when you were in the cage, you were fighting? Forget about the actual result, but just how did you feel in the early portion of the fight after such a long layoff?
Man, up until maybe an hour before the fight, maybe it was the most nervous I've ever been. And you got that fast heart rate even when you're just sitting still, and yeah, I mean, I think maybe the more time off, the more nervous you get. But yeah, it's just nothing to do but sit there and have your heart rate high and think about how it's going to go down. But you never know how it's going to go down, so you try to play it out in your head, and you can't play it out in your head because you don't know how it's going to go, So it was really, really hard. I just knew I had to just get to the fight. And as soon as we touch each other, the nerves go away. But I actually kind of started mellowing out an hour before the fight because, I don't know, somehow I was just able to get in the zone, and I put my earplugs in and, hit myself in the face a little bit and stretched out and got ready.
And some things never change. Still no sponsor banners, still no sponsors on your shorts. Were you tempted at all? I know the last time you were on the show, almost 2 years ago, you talked about this. Nothing came as far as sponsors are concerned. You prefer to go solo.
I think if there was a good opportunity, I'm not opposed to it for sure. But the opportunities that are at hand are pretty. I might have been able to make $1,500 if I hustled a bit, maybe a couple grand if I hustled a bit. And I thought, it's not necessarily worth it. I compare it to this. It's going to be a kind of a crude analogy, but I heard, because I was never like a pothead or anything like that, but I heard that the worst part about taking drugs was dealing with drug dealers. And I think that the worst part about sponsors is dealing with the people that are around them, sleazy, wannabe managers, and people that represent this or try to have a connection there, and it's pretty obnoxious. So I kind of just try to ignore that part because it just seems more trouble than it's worth.
And I couldn't help but notice, but you're known for having your wife in your corner. I don't believe she was there, right?
She was not. I wish she was. She was she had bigger fish to fry. She is responsible for someone. So she was taking care of business and trying to watch. Instead, she says that she gets more nervous not being there. She says if she can look and touch someone, she's not nervous for them.
How did you feel not having her there?
I would have preferred it, but it let me get in the zone. I mean, I guess I probably would have gotten in the same zone, but I mean, it was kind of nice having two of my guys there and just getting in the zone. I think she would have probably had the same effect on me too, but everything couldn't have worked out better. I thought it was just I had a really good warm up, really good brawl with Isaac, and I was actually really happy.
And forgive me for prying, but when you say take care of someone, do you mean a child of yours?
Possibly. I don't know.
Oh, are you a father now?
I don't know. Maybe.
Wow, you're very secretive. You're very private, right? You don't like talking about this stuff.
Yes. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't. I don't want to hindsight anything that I say I do or don't do. I don't know.
Okay. Will she return to your corner, or is that's it? Now it's a new chapter in your life.
Sure. Maybe.
Interesting.
Maybe.
I love that about you. I love that you always have your wife there.
Thanks.
So I was looking for her, and I didn't see her there. But I'm happy. It was not a bad thing, right? I mean, she had, as you said, bigger fish to fry.
Not at all. And not at all. And I even said, hey, you sure you don't want to take a business trip, go out to Austin, beat this guy up, and come back and go alone? She said, you can't make me stay. So she came along. She's enjoying Austin with us, and she was just taking care of some business.
Okay, fair enough. Looking back, I know it's less than 2 days later, but long layoffs, sometimes there's cage rest involved. Were you happy with your performance?
I was. I didn't feel that rusty, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I think maybe the nervousness of it all was the hardest part. Getting through the nerves of like it actually happening. And anticipating something every night for 4 months. I knew about the fight probably 4 months in advance, and then it's a daunting thing. Because like I go in there expecting not expecting at all. I go in there prepared for whatever. Like you might have to try to fight your arm being broken, or try to fight somebody, like knocking you unconscious, trying to knock you unconscious, trying to steal your will. So it's a hard thing to get up for. It's not. I don't feel like it's like a sport like everybody else kind of feels like like you're just getting ready for game day. I'm thinking like I got to get prepared to go past my limit of my actual will. And just in case that might happen, get prepared for that. And it's a hard thing. Maybe I'm over analyzing it and maybe building it up bigger than it is. But it always feels like a fight to me. It doesn't feel like I'm going to compete necessarily.
As you know very well, and I've said this on the show, I've wanted to talk to you for quite some time because I found that your hiatus from MMA to be very interesting, because the last time we saw you, of course, you suffered that loss to TJ Grant in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you did, in fact, do some interviews leading up to the fight. No hard feelings. You're here now. So
and I wanted to hit you up because I told you that if I was to do interviews with anybody, I wanted to do it with you. But I thought they were going to let me go interviewless up into the fight. And I had this, fun little envision that the first interview I was going to do in 2 years' time was going to be my interview after the victory. But, I signed a contract saying that I'll do PR if they make me. And so they made me a couple days advance. I didn't know, if I had enough time. They just said, hey, show up tomorrow at this time for an interview. And I said, do I have to do it? And they said, yes. So
no hard feelings. I totally understand. You got to promote the fight. But, in reading those interviews and reading what you had to say, I wanted a little more, and I wanted to know, why did you leave? Why did you take this break? And did you think you may never come back?
I didn't. Well, I've been speaking more honestly lately.
Yes, I love it.
After several of my fights, I've said I don't think I'm ever doing that again, because it takes a lot out of you, and it's just sometimes just crazier than you feel like you can your little heart can handle sometimes, and then in hindsight you're like, that was a pretty crazy experience. Maybe I'll do that again, But after several of my fights, I've said, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to do that again. It's not healthy. It's not like sustainable. It's like crazy madness. So after that fight, I think it was I'd been swimming uphill too long, or swimming against the stream too long. And walking uphill, maybe. Is a good example. But I know everybody deals with injury in the sport, but I think I had just ignored my body for too long and just pushed through injury. So I said to myself, I'm going to fix up my body a bit and then see what happens, But then the more time went by, the more I'm like, it's silly. You have all these. I talked to Brian Stan. He said he had the same questions. These little things that pop up in your head. Do you have it anymore? Or you always have to prove yourself to yourself. You have to constantly reinvent yourself and make sure you still have it. Make sure you're still working as hard, still as capable. Blah blah blah. And not only that, but actually get better and advance. And so it's a hard thing. And I was like, I don't know. I kind of left that door open, and eventually started getting healthier and started, getting kind of itchy. And I got to do something. I got to make money, and I got to do something. And I was like, you know what? I have a career if I want it, and I actually like my career. So why wouldn't I do that? And so there I was, finding myself training for another fight, and now 2 days afterwards, glad I did it.
So you feel good about your career? You want to keep going?
I think so. Yeah. yeah, it sucks when you know, like, there's been nights, this is what's humbling, is like, I think I'm big and tough, and then, like, there's been nights I can't sleep just because, like, my toe is so painful I can't sleep. You know, something from, like, a broken toe, you know, and that's annoying. It's like, your quality of life is just obnoxious, you know, and then that wasn't the injury that I needed surgery on, but that was the one that kind of humbled me, like, you can't sleep because your toe hurts, really? Like, you know, you gonna get up tomorrow and spar, you know, something silly like that.
Did you get to the point where you were considering doing something else? Like, what could you do if you weren't a fighter?
That's a good question. I've asked myself the same thing, you know. I think when you, I don't really want it, like, when you pursue something, I don't really feel like putting a safety net underneath you, because you've seen that movie with Batman.
Sure.
You know, he makes that jump when he doesn't have that safety net, and so I don't really like looking at things with a second option. You know, you don't go to school for the education if you're an athlete. In my opinion, you go there to pursue your career as an athlete. And I don't know what I would do. So that's a tough question. It's kind of a stressful question. But I hope it would be something that I love and that it doesn't seem like work, because I don't feel like I go to work when I train. I feel like, you know, it's good that it produces money, and I'm glad that I'm financially, productive. But, you know, if you, like, the age-old saying, if you do what you like, you're not working.
Sure.
And you can work harder at it because you give it your heart and soul, and if it's work, it's just not going to be sustainable.
But going through this, did you start thinking, okay, I need to prepare myself for life after fighting? As you know, this isn't going to last forever. So did it give you that eye-opening experience where you're like, okay, I got to start doing something now so I'm ready for that day?
Well, I don't know. Because everybody's careers, I think, are going to be different. When who's to say when or how much you have left? I read an interview. I'm not a very negative person, but I thought this was a ridiculous statement that read an article about myself, and then said that Matt Wiman may not break into the top 10 in his career, but he's been like there competing with the best. Blah blah blah. I was like, hey, you know, that sounded obnoxious, because I actually think I have read an article that says that I broke into the top 10, and then to say what I can and can't do.
Right.
With my career, you know. So, I don't know.
It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you kind of you struggle a little bit about this sport. I read a quote from you in an ESPN article, and you were saying, you know, like, you see these middle-aged men in suits talking about this, and I'm sure you're referring to the Fox people and all that, and that just seems weird to you to have people in suits talking about a cage fight. Like,
I think it's actually just honest.
I love it.
I think it's negative. I think it's not negative at all. There's a part that I don't like, people putting their opinion in, especially strongly opinion. I mean, like, why would you even put your opinion? I would say, you know, opinions are pretty obnoxious and pretty silly, especially a bold thing to say, like, we might not see Matt Wiman in the top 10.
Sure.
I mean, that just sounds like a very ignorant thing to say and silly. So
some people are paid to give their opinion, but I get what you're trying to say. I mean,
sure.
Does it bother you?
Like, but especially somebody that doesn't understand, like, and you probably might actually, because I think you are very detailed, aware of details, and actually learn and desire to understand these things. But do you think most people understand what I was doing? Hitting the switch, taking the back, Isaac. I mean,
sure.
Will they understand that dynamic, or do they just kind of think like, we just kind of fell into that position? I know they don't necessarily think that, they literally don't know. So it's kind of just see it happen. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for him to understand how good of a fighter I am, he would have to understand fighting.
Sure. So if it's an ex-fighter, then are you okay with it? You're just maybe not a fan of.
Possibly, but I mean, a high-level fighter, could possibly give his opinion, but again, I guess it would only matter to himself. in my opinion. Who gives a crap about other people's opinion, really? And most people willing to give their opinion shouldn't be.
Right.
If I asked you your opinion,
sure.
what's your opinion? Maybe that's important.
When you were on the ground with Isaac at the very end of the fight, seconds remaining, it seemed like you guys were going back and forth, and even as the fight ended, you were going back and forth. What was that all about? What did you say to each other?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I was actually quite kind of in hindsight embarrassed to that. I thought that I acted unprofessionally, and I felt like I hold myself to a standard of like, you don't respond to evil with evil. I thought Isaac was running his mouth at weigh-ins, and it kind of irritated me. And I'm not even the guy that cares about respect. He can respect me or not respect me. It doesn't change the fight. So I don't know why I got kind of wrapped up in that. But it was actually an honest mistake. He said he wasn't talking crap. He was just saying, like, let's make a great fight and let's get after it, or something like that. It wasn't even that bad. And if you look at weigh-ins, it looks like he's running his mouth pretty bad. I didn't even actually hear him. I just saw his eyes and saw him bounce in my face and talking. So I just assumed that he was being nasty in front of the cameras, and kind of took a little sleep from me that night, and it irritated me a little bit, and it shouldn't have. But when you don't like a guy, it does kind of make it a little bit more personal. Mm-hmm. Not that it's not already personal. He's going to try to elbow my face in. That's personal. But so afterwards, I said something along the lines of, "I just won. How does that make you feel?" And I liked his response. He said, "I'm going to keep going." And so I was like, "Well, you're a pretty tough guy, and I'll keep doing that. We'll just keep going." But yeah, he was not, a guy to be defeated by any means, and he's not going to have a guy, sitting there telling him he's beaten. But in my opinion, he was, just because we couldn't keep going.
I saw a picture afterwards. It seemed like you guys are cool now. You were in the back. And
and what's really nice about Isaac is he gave a crap about clearing the air.
Okay.
Most people would be like, "Oh, Wiman's a jerk, running his mouth like that," but who cares, But he actually wanted to explain himself, which men don't like explaining themselves. And I thought that was showed a ton of character. He was like, "Hey, look, Matt," and he was even bold enough to say that he was a fan of mine. And I don't think that that's weird, because I'm a fan of his. I like his fighting style, and I like the way he fights. And I'm not afraid to admit it. But for him to come up to me and say, "Hey, Matt, I'm a fan of yours. I want to clear the air." I wasn't talking crap at weigh-ins. I was just amped up. And so I understand that you're mad, but I just want to let you know that I didn't mean any disrespect by it. And then I didn't actually want to hear that, because I felt like a horse's but because we're on air, sorry.
No, okay.
And so then I was like, well, crap, now I just made a fool of myself for nothing, and I shouldn't even have done it, because even if he was being rude, I shouldn't have been rude back. So that being said, we actually hugged for a minute, and to the point where he said, "Well, stop hugging me," and we made up, and he's a cool guy. I'm glad that we actually got that opinion, because I thought he was just putting on a show in front of cameras like some guys do, and do that trashy running their mouth.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, because I do agree, both of you two are the really good guys in the sport. So that's good to hear after the fact.
Yeah, he was a really cool guy in person. For sure.
What was up with the? I liked your attire very much. Post-fight press conference and all that. The suspenders, the shirt, the glasses. Yeah. What was that all about?
Yeah, I don't know. I dress like that sometimes, in my personal life, but so I thought, maybe I'd bring a little taste of Portland to Austin, which they already have. So, yeah, and I normally just wear, the workout attire, but figured I might try a little bit and, try to look cute,
Oh yeah, you look great. So that's not something that you brought out just to impress people. You wear that stuff on a daily basis.
No, yeah, and I was actually kind of disappointed in myself that I shaved my mustache.
You had a mustache too.
I had a mustache.
Wow.
And, yeah, just for fun. I like styles for fun. Don't take it too seriously, and just try every now and then, but not in a obsessively vain way. But yeah, mustaches are fun, and I shave mine because I lose my personality. I think I lose my personality when fight time comes, because you take it so seriously. You know, it's like, I don't want to joke around. I don't want to, be, trendy or fix my hair or something like that. You know, you just like want to go to fight.
Right. People ask me all the time, and it's part of your appeal, but I feel like I have to check in on this. Still Twitterless.
Twitterless. Yes.
So if you had a presence, we would have known about the mustache and other things like that, perhaps.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm having a hard time not feeling pretty obnoxious talking about myself for this long, just because honestly, like, I don't want to make the impression that I think the world revolves around me. So, that being said, a lot of guys need that. I think that up-and-coming fighters need to get their name out there. And I think established fighters like myself don't need it as much. Maybe for some sponsors or something like that, but I just didn't feel like it was that necessary, because how many people watched our fight on Saturday? That to me was the publicity I needed. I didn't need much more publicity. So that, and it's a lot of work. That, and I don't necessarily want to be in touch with anybody or care to read about. If I post something, I'd probably want to know what people thought about it, you know?
Sure.
And I do like people, but I like people on a personal level, and I like people in like face to face. I don't like people on the internet. I don't like people in a distant manner, and I don't like them in a group. Like, if you categorize people, like, because most of the people in the crowd, and most of the people, just like out there is just going to be very distant and selfish, and like if you were to say your opinion in front of the fighter's family about that fighter, it might be different than you just talking about a public figure fighter, out loud, not thinking, hey, look, he's a person, he's a fighter, and I need to have that, like, respect, instead of just looking at him as a public figure.
Well, I don't blame you. And the first time you told me about this 2 years ago, I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. 2 years later, I think I agree with you a lot more than I don't about your stance on all this. So I actually give you a lot of credit for taking that stance and sticking to it. Before I let you go,
but
go ahead.
I do like the concept. Sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Like the concept of talking to the public about important things. I do like that. So I think that can be done maybe like we are doing in an interview and stuff like that. Because, and also I don't know how I feel about promoting things outside fighting in a fighting atmosphere. Like, there's things that I want to talk about publicly that don't pertain to fighting, and I feel like it would be kind of lying to trick people to come to my website about fighting and then tell them, hey, this is what I think about factory farming. This is what I think about this. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, I just kind of want to know about fighting because that's what interests me. I don't really want to hear your political and religious beliefs.
Well, you'll be surprised about that. But, everyone has their own stance, and I think you're doing just fine without all of it. So don't feel like I'm pressuring you into getting into any of that social media stuff. But before I let you go, and I feel like I could talk to you for hours, it's great to have you on the show finally.
And I would, because I really appreciate your mind.
Thank you. Now that you're back, you're on the winning track. Do you want to get back in there rather quickly? And just throwing it out there, you don't strike me as the kind of person who would do this, but do you have an idea, an opinion as to who you'd like to fight next?
Man, it does kind of get you your motor running a little bit. I didn't even sleep 2 nights ago, so last night I got a few hours. It gets your adrenaline going. I'd have to look if I was to look for another opponent, but I don't discount me fighting again.
Okay, that's good.
And I feel good. My foot's a little swollen, is all, from him rudely checking all of my kicks and rudely elbowing me when I tried to kick him in the face.
What a guy!
He elbowed my shin and foot.
Wow!
Instead of letting me connect with it.
So rude that Isaac Vallie-Flagg. I got to say, it's one of the great stories in MMA right now. Seeing you come back, you're one of the great parts of the sport, and you're a fascinating guy. And I'm really happy that you're back and you picked up a win. So congratulations on that, and hopefully you don't leave us for another 2 years because it's fun having you around, Matt. Thank you so much for the time. Congratulations. Enjoy the win. Say hello to your wife and family, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Ariel, and all your kind words are very appreciated.
All right, there he is. Matt Wiman joins us. Like I said, one of the great characters in our sport, and great to have him back in the UFC.